Okay. Good morning. Welcome to SunCoast MCC, where we practice truth, trust, and transformation. We're so glad you are all here this morning. And if you are a first-time visitor, we welcome you as we welcome all of our people. But if you're a first-time guest, we do have a welcome packet. If you did not get that welcome packet, we would ask you to raise your hand, and we'll be sure to get one to you. Anyone over here? We could use one here. Anyone else need a welcome packet? If you need one, lift your hand up and we'll get one to you. And in the welcome packet, you'll find a visitor's card that we'd ask you to complete. And if you can get that filled out and dropped off, you can give it to someone who looks like they know what they're doing, or you can put it in the offering plate as it goes by. And we will appreciate that very much. Let's take a moment and say hi to our online folks. Good morning, online viewers. We welcome you also. Online folks, if you'll do us the pleasure and the favor of putting in the chat where you're watching from and how many people are watching from your account, we would greatly appreciate that. We also encourage you to be engaged in the service, to comment while the service is going on, give those emojis, those thumbs up, and hopefully not a thumbs down unless there's a thumbs down occasion, which there never is, but thumbs up emojis, smileys, prayer hands, whatever works for you. We encourage you to be engaged in that way with us. Also, you can start listing your prayer requests, and those will then be put on our prayer list, and those will be prayed for throughout the week. So thank you for joining us online. And thank you for being here in person. Friday was Veterans Day. And if you are a veteran from any of our services, if you would please rise as you are able so that we can appropriately thank you for your service. We thank you for your service and your sacrifice that you made for all of us. We bless you. We thank you. And now, let's hear some announcements.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Due to the rising cases of COVID in our community, the Board of Directors has decided to ask everyone who attends worship or comes to the church to wear a mask until further notice. This is for your safety and the safety of others. Please remember that you must be vaccinated to attend worship. Finally, if you wish to socially distance during worship, you can use the cards found at the end of each row to indicate that seats are unavailable. The congregational meeting is today, Sunday, November 13th, immediately after worship. We encourage all members to stay. We will be having another potluck fellowship dinner and healing prayer service on Thursday, November 17th. Please use the link in the newsletter or in the form in the lobby to sign up and let us know what you will be bringing to share. Next Sunday, November 20th at 3 p.m., Diversity will be having a concert here celebrating their 25th anniversary. If any of you were at Pride yesterday and heard them, they are quite remarkable. Admission is free, but you must have a ticket. Instead of charging, they are asking people to bring a donation of food or other items needed to be donated to Second Chance in Sarasota. You can pick up a ticket after service at the welcome desk. On Friday, December 2nd, at 2 p.m., the Venice SunCoast Wind Ensemble will be having a concert. Ticket prices are $10 and can be purchased online at the door or on the day of the concert. This is a fundraiser for the church. They are also quite remarkable. You still have time to register a team or for lunch at SunCoast MCC's first annual golf charity on Saturday. That will take place on Saturday, December 10th. Please consider registering a team or joining us for lunch. Finally, today is Pillars Sunday. Please consider giving an additional gift to the mortgage fund, either online or by using the yellow envelopes in the chair backs. Check out the website and the weekly Staying Connected for additional information on ways to stay involved. Now, if everyone would rise, and let's take a minute to greet each other safely. On the count of 3, open your arms wide and extend a warm welcome to all joining us in person or online. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. We did that last week. Pardon? That's last week. We did birthdays last week. We're moving on. That's good. That's all right.
We are here this morning to worship God, to offer our thanks for the spiritual gift of recovery. We are blessed to be here to see one another, in person or virtually, as we sing. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks with the Holy One. Give thanks because we're given Jesus Christ, your Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because we're given Jesus Christ, your Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what our God has done for us. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what our God has done for us. Give thanks. We gather for worship this morning to give thanks through our challenges and opportunities, and for our journey in recovery, celebrating the gifts we share with our church. We give thanks for life and the purpose only we can serve in our families, in this congregation, and in the world. Help us to reflect on the awesome wonder of how our individual gifts combine with others to fulfill the mission of our church. Let us seek new ways to use our body, mind, and spirit to serve this community and, by extension, countless other souls,
thereby fulfilling God's call to stewardship.
We gather this morning as we prepare spiritually for our congregational meeting and our week ahead, to be open to hearing the voice of God and to discern the will of God. We gather this morning to worship. Amen.
Please rise as you're able. Our opening song this morning is a very familiar tune, but little different words. Sure.
All right, come on, we're going to sing a cappella of 4,000 Suns. Oh, for a thousand.
Yeah.
On there, we'll just have what to do. We're looking like we have last week's. I'm working on it. You're working on it. Okay. This is fabulous.
Okay. Are we ready? Here we go.
Okay, let's play.
Of this new way, earnestly we seek for wholeness, learning to let go each day. God, you are our best companion as we gain sobriety for ourselves and heal each other by your power, are your giving, are your unity. Turn it over that our struggle to embrace this narrow way as we deal with fear and anger, as we learn again to pray. Help us face our needs and longings, let each day begin to be an amazing new adventure of the Spirit's bearing gracious opportunity. Jesus, did you ever wonder why we fall in guilt of death? Did you mean for us to suffer, waiting for our final breath? God, instead you came to rescue us from death, from pain and anguish, into eternal loving, everlasting power. Thank you for the new awareness, conscious living does provide. Thank you for the peace we witness as the pain and health subside. Thank you for the joy of growing as we trust you more to be higher power for our journey, our new hope, our friend and healer, our serenity.
You may be seated. We are continuing to celebrate the impact SunCoast MCC has had on families. I want to tell you a story about my aunt, my mother's sister, and how our church has blessed her. Aunt Penny is homebound, now is in a nursing home. Had many health challenges. She did belong to a church there in our hometown, and unfortunately that church had no outreach to her during her long at-home confinement. And so I talked to Aunt Penny, and after working with her with technology, was able to finally get her to the place where she could log in and she could participate in SunCoast MCC services every week. It would not be uncommon for Sunday on our drive home for my phone to ring, and it was Aunt Penny telling us how much she enjoyed the service, and she would talk about the music and all the different aspects of the service and how it had blessed her and encouraged her, and how thankful she was that she was able to still be connected to a spiritual community, to be, of course, connected to Michael and me through this wonderful gift of technology and online worship. What an impact our online worship has had for Aunt Penny, who would have no other way of spiritually connecting because of her health conditions and her being confined to staying in one place and not able to be out to go to her own church. So thank you. That is one of the many ways that we are impacting people through the ways that we give and through the technologies that we provide.
And he talked about Rick's wonderful sermons as well. I want to relate the story of how SunCoast MCC has impacted my family. Cindy and I have talked before about how it's impacted us personally. So today I want to tell you a little bit beyond that. Many of you have met our daughter Jenna. She's played her marimba here, and she's also done some of her original music with her guitar. And her undergraduate degree was in music business, but her graduate degree was in thanatology, which is the study of death and dying. She has known for a long time she wants to work with people, particularly at the end stage of life. And after she came to SunCoast and we were talking and she was talking with her boss, she has decided and is now in seminary to be an MCC minister. And, she watches online. She watches several different churches online, and she's starting to preach some. And she has, she was very, very moved by sermons by Reverend Vicki and Reverend Nancy, and she's now really enjoying Reverend Rick. And this church is her sponsoring church. So that's just one way, a big way in our family. And she is thriving in seminary. I'll keep you updated. So that's just one way SunCoast MCC has helped our family. Thank you.
Hello. My family story is a little different. A year ago, while home from college for Thanksgiving holiday, my granddaughter, Gwyneth, came out to her mother, her mother's fiance, and her sister. Scott and I were soon called with the news. Of course, everything went well, and why wouldn't it? She was raised with a gay grandpa in her life, and her mother has been a teacher for 17 years at a high school, and she is very supportive of everyone, including the LGBTQ community. And I've lost my place. Here we go. My daughter Brooke and Gwyneth have been here to SunCoast with us. And they know all the good we do as a church for the Venice and surrounding communities. I feel she is very fortunate to have such a supportive family. However, not all of our youth today have that in their lives. There are still far too many gay youth that are being bullied and abused at school and in their homes. Some of these kids are being kicked out of their homes, yes, even today in 2022. They live in fear. They need acceptance. This is one of the reasons I feel it's important that SunCoast must be able to continue being involved in our community in any way we can, that being gay pride, CHAPS, Second Chance, school supplies, helping families at Christmas, and so much more. We need to never stop educating the general public. Now this morning, I'm going to go off of what I wrote. This morning I woke up at 3 o'clock, and I kind of reviewed the last few days of activities in Scott and my life. So during the past week, I thought about what I was going to say today. And so Friday night, I finally sat down at the table and wrote this out. And read it to Scott, and he says, "That's wonderful." Then we got up at 5 o'clock Saturday morning and went down to set up Venice Pride in Centennial Park. All is good. Until a man went out of his way to walk over towards us. And not just us, but everybody that was down there at that time. He went over to each of their group, each person, and called us degenerates. And I realized that it's not just the youth, that even at 70 years old, it was hurtful to be the subject of somebody's hate.
Good morning. Well, I didn't prepare anything, but because we've been having such adventures in our life, you know, I could talk an hour about that, but never mind. They want me to talk about my granddaughter, who is 10 years old. She is absolutely the pride and the joy of my life, the little devil that she might be at times. But in saying that, since I have come back to this church about 4 years ago, where I met Sharon, and we've proceeded forward in our life, and then my granddaughter has come many times over. Fortunately, through COVID, was able to spend time with us, which I feel really fortunate about. But prior to that, we were able to come to church, and she just thought this was the greatest place that she'd ever been because everybody was friendly to her, and of course she talks to everyone that's not super glued to a chair. So she just went on about her business, and so when we couldn't come during COVID, she was really very aggravated, and she just couldn't. She said, well, you know, this is just not fair, which I tend to agree with. But long story short, she's been here many times. She's always enjoyed coming here. Her favorite person, however, is Reverend Nancy, because upon mentioning that we were going to be doing school shopping in June, Reverend Nancy was kind enough to offer Addison a few dollars to go and buy something that she needed for school. But however, my granddaughter took her money and she decided that she wanted to buy Reverend Nancy this little notebook, and it was all glittery purple. And she wrote a note inside of it, which was rainbow colors, which I really didn't think about at the time. But she just wanted to know that she knew that she gave her the money to buy something for herself, but she wanted to buy her something to tell her thank you. Wow. So she really loves coming here, and unfortunately she's moved to Savannah, so won't be here quite as much. So I'm not happy in case anybody hears me out there. So in case somebody hears me. So anyways, but she really enjoys coming here, and I'm so glad that she does, and she helps in the office, and you know, like I said, she talks everybody's ear off, but she must be like her grandmother. But anyways, thank you, that's it.
It's amazing when you see how we are all connected and how even our families get connected to us because of the impact that we are able to have out into the community. How about one more story? You may or may not know that we have a 12-step group that meets here at the church, which has been growing by leaps and bounds this year. People now travel great distances to connect and benefit from the experience, strength, and hope that they find here under our roof. Being hospitable and supportive, being a recovery-friendly church is part of our mission and tradition here and has impact on many, many lives. We trust these stories make you feel proud that you support SunCoast MCC. God bless you. Thank you.
As long as there is hatred, bullying, phobias, there will always be a need for MCC. Please rise for the reading of God's Word. Our reading is from Philippians. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm in our God in this way, my beloved. I urge you, Euodia, and I urge Syntyche, to be of the same mind in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you also, my loyal companion, help these women, for they have struggled beside me in the work of the gospel, together with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing the things that you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, and the God of peace will be with you. I rejoiced in our God greatly that now at last you have revived your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned for me, but had no opportunity to show it. Not that I am referring to being in need, for I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and being in need. I can do all things through the one who strengthens me. This is God's word for us today. Hallelujah.
Amen. You may be seated. We have some special guests today. Our own wonderful Marcia Stevens, not a guest, Stevens Pino. And also someone that she has mentored and who was on a tour this weekend. Did a concert last night, here this morning, this afternoon. He's doing one for MCC's. Justin Ryan is an award-winning, amazing young man who has devoted his life to reconciling the things we heard from the church that weren't true and helping people, especially younger people, come to terms that they can have that wonderful connection with Jesus, with God, and be exactly who they are. Now, Justin's been here many times before, but will you welcome him home, Justin Ryan? I'm not sure.
Justin and I are celebrating our 20th year in ministry together, just like most people celebrate after COVID. It did happen before during COVID, but now is when we get to celebrate it. And this is a song that I wrote during COVID, and I was just listening to Paul's letter to the Philippians about, you cared for me, but you couldn't show it. And that's what happened for me when George Floyd died. I cared so much. I was heartbroken. I can hardly sing this song without crying. But I wanted so much to express it, and there was nobody doing it. Nobody could do it. You know, there's no studios open, no musicians playing, everybody's on lockdown. And so I called the guys at the Grand Ole Opry, and I said, you know, I have this song, I really have a story I want to tell. And the guys at the Grand Ole Opry, lo and behold, middle of Redneck, Tennessee, were thrilled. And so this is the band from the Grand Ole Opry playing on here. And Justin took this to a abandoned theater in Paducah, Kentucky, one that used to have an alley entrance for black people to go with their own candy store and their own seats and their own bathroom up in the very, very, very top. But he decided to break down those walls. He brought black friends with him and said, you're coming in the front door now. And they made this incredible video. And I need to warn you, it is graphic. But I feel like Emmett Till's mom. you know, Emmett Till was the 14-year-old who had his eyes torn out and who knows what done to him. And she said, he's going to have an open casket because you were going to look at what you did.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
And this nation, for all its hope, will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
That all people should be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love.
When you see something that is not fair, not just, do something. Get in trouble.
If the circle's wide enough for you, but won't let me inside. If the teen who's questioning next door is frightened to confide, say that you believe that God has made me who I am, but you fear your friends and family will never understand. You have to stand closer. Love's not just a word. Stand closer. Actions can be heard. Thoughts and prayers are not enough to say that you are waking up. You're not standing close enough. Stand closer. If the knee that's kneeling on your neck won't take away my breath, the rifle shooting at your back will never cause my death. If I say that I am with you, but you're standing all alone, rocks and insults fly at you, but I don't feel a stone. I have to stand closer. Love's not just a word. Stand closer. Actions can be heard. Thoughts and prayers are not enough to say that I am waking up. I am not standing close enough. Stand closer. Stand closer. The prophets cried for justice. Oh dear God, hear our pleas. You felt our pain and saved our tears. Now raise us from our knees so we can stand closer. Love's not just a word. Stand closer. Actions can be heard. Thoughts and prayers are not enough to say that we are waking up. We're not standing close enough. Stand closer. Love's not just a word. Stand closer. Actions can be heard. Thoughts and prayers are not enough to say that we are waking up. We're not standing close enough. Stand closer. All we need to do is stand closer. Stand closer. Thoughts and prayers are not enough. It's time that everyone wakes up. There's still so much work we have left to do in there. So, some of you have seen me before. How many of you have not? Oh, wow. Then you don't even know where I'm from. But you can probably tell by my twang, I'm from a little town in Kentucky called Paducah. And if you don't know where that's at, let me tell you, on a map, it's between two towns, Monkey's Eyebrow and Possum Trot. So as you can imagine, there weren't a whole lot of people in Paducah, like me. But like Marcia was saying, we do a lot of stuff in the studio with a lot of great Nashville musicians, and we're always trying to challenge the musicians there with the songs that we bring in, and they always know when they come to one of our sessions that they're going to leave there knowing more than they did when they got there, because they come in their bib overalls, you know. And so a friend of mine who's a great lesbian songwriter sent me this song and said it was her interpretation of the Lord's Prayer. So I took it into the... oh, maybe that's not the song I'm doing. We'll get back to that song. But anyway, I know in my own life, when it comes down to talking about recovery, in my own life, I had a lot of bad theology to kind of recover from. You know, I grew up in that little town with my mom and my dad and my little brother, and we went to church every time the doors were open. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Basically, if there was food at church, we were there. And so that's kind of what I grew up with. And we grew up with the church that every Sunday when you were there, they would get on the phone and call each other and let each other know what was going on after church, kind of the gossip, you know. And so the church that we went to was called Gospel Mission, but we kind of nicknamed it Gossip Mission because that's kind of what it was. But you know that kind of church. And when I came out, which I'll talk about a little bit later, it was a very hard experience because I was 17 years old and I got kicked out of my home and didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, when you're 17 years old, you don't know what to do. And, you know, you forget that the Jesus that you heard about as a kid, that you had that childlike faith with, is still that same Jesus who spoke to you all along. And I think somewhere along the lines, we forget that. It reminds me of a story about a young woman who had a tumor that was in her cheek, and the doctor had to go and remove it. While he was in there removing the tumor, he severed a nerve in her cheek, and it paralyzed that side of her face. And the husband came in and with her, and the doctor had to come in and tell them that she was paralyzed. And the wife was just so distraught. And the husband said, "You know what, honey?" He said, "I kind of like it. It's kind of like a wry grin." And he twisted his face up to match hers and leaned in to kiss her to let her know that their kiss still works. And isn't that exactly how God is with each and every one of us? God sent Jesus to become as battered and broken and wounded as you and I are, to meet us where we're at, to let us know that the kiss still works. I'm a single man going on 33, and folks are probably wondering if there's something wrong with me. Shouldn't you be married by now? Find a nice girl and settle down. But God knows that kind of life ain't in the cards for me. I'm not like most other men. I guess I've always been different. I was a mama's boy, kind of a sensitive kid. They'd say fight back like a man, but I never did. When other boys would bully me, I'd turn the other cheek. Always gentle, mild and meek. Some things you just can't change, and I've always been this way, different. So do I make you nervous just a little bit? Could you want me as your neighbor? Would you trust me with your kids? Are you afraid of me 'cause I'm not like you? Is there any one of us who isn't different? Some like to criticize the way I live my life. You see, I like my wine and I spend my time with a bunch of guys, and I ain't ashamed to admit some of my best friends, see, they live their lives and sometimes die out on the edge. You might call them whores and freaks, but they're just like me, different. So do I make you nervous just a little bit? Could you love me as your neighbor? Would you trust me with your kids? Are you afraid of me 'cause I'm not like you? Is there any one of us who isn't different? My name is Jesus, and I live in Galilee. And there's an angry crowd outside right now coming after me. You've never seen such fear, never seen such hate. And if I'm right before tonight, I will be betrayed with a kiss from another man. That's how they'll know I am different. Oh, I am different. Don't you know we're all different? Ooh, different.
Woo! Yeah, yeah. Wow. Ooh, wow. I don't know about you, but my goodness. Wow. Thank you, Justin. I thank you for your wonderful and revolutionary theology that is healing us and bringing together. I thank God that you're different and that I'm different and that we're different by God. I want to thank everyone for help with Pride yesterday and how proud I am. And let's say lots of people here worked hard, but let's give a big round of applause to Kathy Hannes and George Ward especially. Let's just... Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your perseverance. Thank you for believing we could do Pride downtown in Centennial Park. Amen. And even despite, Bill, what we experienced, opposition we experienced, we were ready for it. We weren't deterred by it. So that's powerful. That's powerful. Let's pray together. Thank you, God, for this time to worship, to feel what stirs up inside us because of you. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So we're in a season of giving thanks, and this morning we're giving thanks for the gift of recovery. And I mean recovery in two ways. The specific gift of spiritual practice of recovery from addiction, often called the 12 steps, that teaches addicts and those who are codependent to admit we are powerless over whatever it is, substances or people, and to give ourselves over to a higher power through the daily practice of our spiritual steps. And then there's the recovery for all of us. All of us need spiritual practices of recovery that help us stay sane and healthy in a very insane and addictive culture that we live in these times that are so challenged by COVID and Kathy by storms. I want to also just decide to say hello to Addison for me, and Isn't it wonderful that there are children who just have within them a generosity that's both innate and taught? And isn't it wonderful when they can kind of have that reinforced here in this place? For myself, Al-Anon and the 12 Steps helped me a great deal in my life over the last 40-plus years. In being a pastor and a partner in a 45-year relationship with someone who identifies as a recovering alcoholic. Recovery taught me to mind my own business, to focus on myself and my own recovery, and to surrender to my higher power, who I call God, who can help restore me to sanity in a world that is often not sane. Recovery is a spiritual path. It teaches us to let go and let God. Teaches us to live one day at a time, which there's a lot of Jesus in recovery, I'll tell you that. Jesus said, "Let the day's trouble be sufficient for the day. Do not be anxious about anything. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. You know, God takes care of them. God will take care of us one day at a time." And today we have Paul's letter to the Philippians. Paul says that living our life in Christ is something we have to just keep on doing day by day. You got to keep on practicing. It takes practice to live and be in Christ. It's grace, but it's also practice. Gratitude. Paul talks a lot about gratitude, which is at the heart of recovery. It's at the heart of Christ as well. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me one day at a time. One of my favorite tools of Al-Anon is the prayer called Just for Today. It was one of the first things I discovered. And in the prayer, it basically says, you can do anything for 24 hours. You can sacrifice, you can do without, you can be patient, you can give things up, whatever you have to do. And if you just look at life as a series of 24 hours, you know, you can get through life. But you have to stop thinking about what's going to happen a year from now, or 10 years from now, or 2 months from now, or whatever. Just for today, you can be okay. You can get through it. Most of us know that the things that keep us strong and healthy and hopeful, we know that, but we forget to do them. We neglect ourselves. But every day is a new opportunity to trust in our higher power. I would like to think that SunCoast, we are a recovery-friendly church, that we support and embrace those who are recovering from addiction or who love someone who is, that we make our space available to support those on a journey. And today I'd like to focus on something many of you may know, not just if you're in recovery, but it's the Serenity Prayer. If you know that Serenity Prayer, it's probably one of the most famous prayers besides the Lord's Prayer in the world. And if you know it, say it with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's say it one more time. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's a perfect sermon outline. So here we go. That prayer is attributed to Reinhold Niebuhr. In the 1930s, he was a pastor and theologian. He was the author of many books. I had to read them in seminary, and many of them were hundreds, some were thousands of pages, many volumes long. But isn't it funny that Reinhold Niebuhr is best known for a prayer that's one sentence? You can write thousands of pages, but when it comes down to it, it's this one sentence. Imagine one sentence has changed more lives than any of the books he wrote or many other people have written. It's a no-frills prayer. It's simple but complicated. It's not flowery. One sentence. Can you imagine that? Serenity. It's about serenity. It's peace. It's the opposite of the chaos of addiction and its consequences. It's a petition. It's focused on myself. That's interesting. It's a prayer for me. God grant me the things I cannot change. My attitudes, my behavior. You know, serenity is about peace. I think of the song, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me." Someone once said, peace is not just about stopping wars, it's about how I answer the phone. Peace is many things. So the first part is accept the things I cannot change. Well, right off the bat, I'm in a lot of trouble here. Accept the things I cannot change. I kind of hit a wall with that phrase. In my life, it feels like there's a whole lot of things that are unacceptable that I believe that I can change. There's a part of me that hopes I can change anything, but it's not true. Now, I do believe that anything can be changed, but I have to face the fact that I cannot change everything. I have to accept the things I cannot change. Sometimes there are things I cannot fix or prevent. Election results that, despite what I donate or how I vote or encourage people to vote, don't go my way. Other people that make choices that I wish they would not make. Things that happen beyond my control. Hurricanes, death, COVID. During the worst of HIV and AIDS, as a young person, I was in my 30s, people kept dying, members of my church, colleagues, friends. I became really good at doing funerals, which was not my ambition. I wanted AIDS to stop, and I could not stop it. There were moments and times that became a spiritual crisis for me, where I had to face that once again, I had to accept things I couldn't change. I had to ask God to handle them. I had to be willing to ask for help, and I had to be willing to say, I can't do it all. And I have to trust God for all of it. Jesus was God's Son, Savior of the world, and yet, Justin, there were things he could not change. Disappointments, disciples who were clueless, people who walked away, people who denied or betrayed him, his hometown, where he was not able to do many miracles, it said. I think about sometimes being President of the United States. I've met a few, I've known one. President of the United States, in some ways, is the most powerful person in the world. The hardest thing about being president for most people, I think, is that you suddenly figure out how much you cannot change, even as President of the United States. You can't cure inflation. You can't control the actions of other nations or storms or disasters. How humbling. Accept the things I cannot change. And then there's the courage to change the things I can. I'm a lot more comfortable in this zone. But all of us are not comfortable in this zone. There are a lot of folks who are afraid to rock the boat, or even to get into it in the first place. For some people, changing the world seems to be a part of their destiny. But for others, daring to speak up or to be part of a movement, volunteering, knocking on doors, for some it's second nature, but for others it seems impossible or hard. I cannot imagine myself speaking up or doing that. My niece was visiting this past week. She was adopted by two of my friends in the 1980s. While we were watching election results this week, I was a little surprised and amazed at the depth of her knowledge and interest in all of the issues. When I asked, she said, well, don't forget, when I was a toddler, I was in a backpack on my mom's back as she went door to door campaigning for some cause or another. She laughed and said, "I guess I was just dragged into it from the beginning." I think of Troy Perry, who started MCC in 1968, who came from a church background where, the world was going to hell and you didn't even bother to try to change it. But things changed in his life, and after a suicide attempt, he began a journey of recovery himself that led to the starting of MCC churches. Imagine the courage it took to defy all the lies and the prejudice of thousands of years and to risk the danger just to say all people are loved by God. Some of us come by that courage naturally. Others of us have to be dragged into it, I guess. My own journey of activism started before my coming out. It started in college during the Vietnam War. I came to realize that young people could have an impact. We could change the conversation. We could risk ourselves. Sounds like a lot of young people are starting to believe that too today. What they can do to stop gun violence or to deal with climate change. To make a more inclusive and just world. As a young person, at first I had to push myself to march and demonstrate against the war, even as students were killed on campuses for doing that. Yesterday, we made history in the bright Florida sunshine of Centennial Park, having the first Pride in downtown Venice, downtown sleepy Venice, Florida. Oh, my goodness. And fundamentalists with ugly signs and proud boys circling the park did not deter us or dampen our courage. 5 or 10 years ago, we could never have imagined such a thing, right? We couldn't have. But there we were. Some of the hardest things to change are not political, but they're personal. For me, it was facing my own fears, asking for help. It's one thing to fight for same-sex marriage. It's another to be in one. Let that sink in. I know some of you took a minute to think about that, but a healthy, successful marriage takes courage. To know yourself, to risk being known, to learn to forgive, to admit we are wrong, to be selfless while also taking care of ourselves. Oh my, those things take a lot of courage. And finally, the wisdom to know the difference. We need wisdom to know the difference between what I can fix or change and what I have to accept, and that I can't change others. I can only change myself. Maybe today you're struggling with addiction, alcohol, drugs, or food or something. During the pandemic, those with addictions struggled even more with the isolation and loneliness. Maybe today is the day you or someone you love will have the courage to face what is keeping you from a whole, healthy life. Maybe today is the day you'll discern what it is that can change, what it is that you need to accept. If you're a person who loves an addict, maybe today is the day you learn you cannot control others. You just have to take care of yourself. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to leave them alone. Let go and let God. As we all recover from years of disruption, COVID, hurricanes, and losses, while we know life will never be the same, it can be good and worthwhile, even if it is not what we had planned. Today's going to be the day someone surrenders to God the things they cannot change, where someone decides to have courage to change the things they can, and when someone is given the wisdom to know the difference. So say it with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. And now let's welcome Justin Ryan.
Well, I told you a little bit about my coming out story, but I was 17 years old living in Paducah, Kentucky, next to Possum Trot. I didn't quite dress like this back then, of course. But I had started working a little retail job at the mall like most high school kids do, and I met this kid who was there, and he was the only other gay person I'd ever met, and he was the gayest person I've ever met in my life. He would take the little stick, that you get the clothes up on the top of the racks with, to reach up with. He would take them and twirl them down the aisle like it was a baton, you know. And so he told me one day, he said, Justin, he said, you know, if you don't come out to your parents, he said, they're going to find it out from somebody on the street. So you better really think about that. So I did. And I thought, well, when would be the perfect time to talk to my dad? And I thought, well, Wednesday night's coming up. He goes to church. Let's do it after Wednesday night church, because maybe the Spirit will still be flowing in the room, you know. And I got home and I said, Dad, can we talk? And he just said, well, go ahead and say it. And I said, okay, I'm gay. And he said, well, you see that door back there? I want you to walk out of it and never return. You're no longer my son, and we don't want to have anything to do with you. I was a senior in high school. I was 17 years old. And, you know, when you're 17 years old, you don't have a whole lot of life experience. And your parents are your support system. So when you don't have that, you've got this whole brand new life that you've been given. And it's scary because there's a lot of places, especially back then, that you could end up at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so I did what any little gay kid would do. I just continued to work my job and go to school, and I lived out of my car for about the last half of my senior year. And then I met the second gay person I'd ever met, and he was a little bit older and had a house, and all I really wanted was a relationship. So I got into a relationship at 18, and I wasn't really the best judge of character. Wouldn't be anything at all for me to go home or go to work at Sears with a black eye or a broken foot, because things were just so bad at home. But I didn't know any different, and I certainly didn't have anywhere else to go. So one night I was at home, and I was going over to the computer to check my email, and I shook the mouse on the computer, and the computer was asleep, and it came back on, and my partner at the time had left his emails up. And it's hard to stare away from a train wreck when you see one. So there was a strand of emails where he had been cheating. And I was only 18, and I thought, you know, I need to go say something to him. So I went and said something to him, and he said, you know, Justin, he said, this is my house, so if you don't like it, you can leave. And I thought to myself, wow, he left the house. And I remember just sitting there in my pool of despair, and I thought to myself, I finally get it. My family doesn't want me. My friends don't want me. The church certainly doesn't want me. The person I've given it all up to be with doesn't want me. And God certainly doesn't have anything to say to me. So I don't need to be here anymore. So I remember, like any good gay boy would, I went into the bathroom and put on my favorite outfit, lacquered up my hair so that nobody would ever be able to move it, went into the kitchen, got some alcohol and some of his sleeping pills, took a bunch of them, and laid down in my perfect little Lily Munster pose so I'd be there exactly the way I wanted to be found when they found me. And as I started to go into that stupor from the medication, I thought to myself, this is not messy enough. My father's just going to tell people that I died of a health problem, and it's going to cover it all up, and that's going to be it. So I stumbled out to the kitchen and got a knife and started cutting myself wherever I could. And somewhere along the line I passed out, and when I woke up, I was in the emergency room. He had forgotten his wallet and came home and found me. And for a long time, I was really angry because I thought, like Marcia said so many times, all I wanted to do in life was just be normal. I just wanted a relationship with someone that I loved, to be able to sing, and to be able to go tell others about God. But I figured that that was plan A, and somewhere I'd missed it. So after I recovered from my attempt to take my life, I eventually went back to work. And the little guy that worked there came up to me and he said, Justin, he said, I know you've been going through some tough stuff. He said, have you ever thought about going to church? I thought, boy, you hadn't been around to know the history, have you? Like, church is exactly the reason that this is happening. And he said, oh, no. He said, I'm not talking about that. He said, I'm talking about going to a gay church. And I went, what is that? Like a more daylight, less smoky version of a bar? Where are the drag queens, you know? And he said, no, Justin, it's church. And, you know, at the time, Paducah didn't have a gay bar, but we had an MCC. Yeah. And so he nagged me for weeks about going, and I was just not going to do it because, like you said, when you don't want to accept it, you just don't want to accept it. You don't want to accept any kind of recovery that you can. God knew what I needed, though, and every few days he'd come down the aisle with that baton, twirling it at Sears and say, "You going to go to church with me this Sunday? You going to go to church with me this Sunday?" Finally, I realized if I didn't go, I wasn't going to hear the end of it. So nobody gave me the memo about MCC, so I dressed way up, fixed my hair all up. I looked like I was ready to go to the Academy Awards. Showed up way past gay standard time. Sat on the very back row back there because I didn't want whatever was up here to get me. And come to find out, that was just exactly what I needed at that time, as I'm sure so many of you have experienced in your own lives through the gift of MCC. And so as I sat there, I started to feel, couldn't tell you what the songs were that day. I couldn't tell you what the pastor spoke about. But what I can tell you is that was the start of a whole lot of healing in my own life. Because I was finally I wasn't able to change my circumstances, but I was able to change the fact that I was not going to let those voices get inside my head and let me feel like that God didn't want to have anything to do with me, because God made me exactly as I am, even if it is different. But I know out there that some of you may be struggling with some stuff, but like Nancy was talking about earlier, we've all gone through stuff with the pandemic. We've all gone through stuff with the storms that have been here. And this is a song that Marcia gave me when she first found me a long time ago. And I didn't know over the years what kind of healing that it would bring in my life. But it kind of spells it out easy for me. And it just is a reminder to let you know that no matter whatever happens, God is always there, even when you cannot speak God's name. Be with me when I cannot speak your name. I'm choking in the pools of my despair. What if I cry and you're not really there? Is there a chance you'd love me just the same when I cannot speak your name? I keep your portrait in a gilded frame. That crucifix just mocks me from the wall. What if I'm really not your child at all? That terror has extinguished every flame till I cannot speak your name. What if I use my final breath to pray? Find you do not answer anyway. And will I only have myself to blame, or will you be there when I cannot speak your name? I hide my heart where none can reach. Can I not live this life I preach? The well-worn pages burn in the refuse of my fall. Was your book only made of paper after all? What if my last chance already came? What if my all is not enough?
If you should call me on this bluff, still you'd find a way to bear my shame when I cannot speak your name. What if I use my final breath to pray and find you do not answer anyway? Will I only have myself to blame, or will you be there? But here's the good news. You're with us when we dare not. You're with us when we will not. And you love us when we cannot speak your name.
I'm going to ask you to give your testimony, and then we'll move to the Lord's Prayer. That's it. Okay. So, musicians and everyone, Gene, I've asked Gene if he would give a little of his testimony to you as a person in recovery, and we'll conclude then with the Lord's Prayer, and we'll have Justin back one more time during the offertory, and we'll be taking two offerings, one for the church, the first one, and the second one is a love offering for Justin and his ministry being here today. We want many people to hear what we've heard today. And so I'm just giving you a little warning, helping you get ready for when that time comes. Will you welcome Gene Wolfgang?
Hi, family and friends. I'm Gene. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And it all started to go out of control in April of 1993 when I got a call from our doctor that my partner of over 12 years died of AIDS. And after all we had built and all of our plans for the future, there didn't seem any reason to go any further than that time and that moment. And I quickly became totally out of control with alcohol and smoking crack. I couldn't find my way because I didn't look for God's way. And the prayer that came to mean the most to me is the prayer that Nancy spoke of today. Whatever happens to me now, and this took 10 years, it didn't start continuously till 2003. So for 10 years, I was in and out of the program. Whenever someone died of AIDS, it was a call for me to return to alcohol and crack. And my life was failing. I was 135 pounds. I walked with 2 canes. And there didn't seem to be much hope. But the hope came when I accepted the fact that whatever experience I had or would have, if I first seek serenity, peacefulness, acceptance with God, God will supply me with the proper response, reaction, or behavior. And after working 10 years with the program, and I attended AA here in the old church, I attended AA back in the trailer, and I attend AA today here in our library, and I attend other AA meetings. But most of all, I attend to my time with God and seeking the serenity so that God can speak to my mentality and show me the response and not a reaction to return to where I have been. And next year, if it be God's will, in April or March, I'll celebrate 20 continuous years. And that's just an if. I get today, as long as I seek God, obey God, and follow the 12 steps of my recovery program. Please rise as we say the Lord's Prayer. Our Creator, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the glory forever. Amen.
You may be seated.
Offering time. Yes, that's a reason to celebrate, because we are invited to participate in the impact that we as a congregation have throughout not only one another, but throughout our community and further reaching with our online ministry. We're going to be receiving 2 offerings. The first offering, as the plates go around, are for our church, okay? And then they were just, after the plate goes by, it's going to come by a second time, and that's for Justin Ryan and his ministry. If you make out a check, you can make out the check to the church. Just make sure in the memo portion you put down Justin Ryan, okay? And then that way we'll just make sure he gets the single amount that way, all right? You can give online as well. You can give by mailing a check, dropping a check, by bringing a check here to the church. Thank you for all the many ways that you give, and God bless you today as you give. This is for the church, the first round.
Oh, so I was telling you that story earlier about going to Nashville and working. Well, after Marcia found me, I kind of got kidnapped and brought to Florida. And then I ended up in Nashville. I ended up recording with a lot of folks. And so when we go in the studio, those musicians always get an earful when they learn something, you know. So we went in, a lesbian friend of mine wrote this song, and it was her version of the Lord's Prayer, her interpretation. So she sent it to me, I heard it, I loved it. The musicians, the first thing they say to you is, how do you want this song to sound? And I said, well, I don't want it to go over anybody's head, so let's make it sound real twangy and real country. Let's make them feel like they're getting ready to watch Duck Dynasty or something like that, you know. And so by the time we got to the end of the song, I think a couple of those musicians had spit their Chick-fil-A out or swallowed it one. But we had Loretta Lynn's little 65-year-old steel player play on this song. And so I think by the time we get to the end of it, you'll be able to sing it with me. But this is the lesbian version of the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come to every nation. Thy will be done in everything we do. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from those who think they're you. Lord, send us forth to be of service, to build a bridge, to dig the wells, and deliver us from the TV preachers with their narrow minds and very wide lapels. Thy kingdom come to every nation. Thy will be done in everything we do. Lord, lead us not
deliver us from those who think they're you. Lord, deliver us from politicians who drop your name in every speech as if they're your best friend from high school, as if they practice what they preach. Thy kingdom come to every nation. Thy will be done in everything we do. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from those who think they're you. And send us forth to bring equality to everyone, LGBTQ and straight. Remind us all it's how we love that matters. Our only enemy is hate. Thy kingdom come to every nation. Thy will be done in everything we do. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from those who think they're you. If you know it, sing it. Thy kingdom come to every nation. Thy will be done in everything we do. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from those who think they're you. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from those who think they're you. And the church said, amen, 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 amen.
Whatever the gift may be, all that we have is yours alone. We give it gratefully. God, we thank you for these gifts. We bless gift and giver. We bless Justin and his ministry as well. We thank you in your many names. Amen. You may be seated.
And folks, just follow me. We're going to edit a little bit, and we're not going to sing. We're not going to sing. Okay, good. It's so much fun to have fun in church, isn't it? I tell you, one of the things I love most about MCC, we can laugh in the middle of our singing and praying and cry, and just God is good.
Yes.
So, if you're watching online, I invite you to gather your bread and juice as we prepare for communion. And for those of us who are gathered here, I invite you to retrieve your communion packet. If you did not receive a packet, please raise your hand for an usher right now. Ushers, go ahead and look and see if anyone needs one. There are 2 seals, one for the bread and juice. Unseal only the top seal and wait until instructed. And we're going to move ahead and just say, God, we thank you so much for Jesus. We thank you for this meal. We thank you, God, for creating a place of inclusion and love. And we know you are the one who invites us to this feast, to this ordinary meal that you transform into your real presence. And so we remember that Jesus, on the night in which he was betrayed, took bread, blessed it and broke it, and gave it to his friends who were with him, and said, "Take and eat. This is my body, given for you and for all people, that we may be one with God. Amen.
And then after the supper, as was their custom, he took the cup. He blessed it. He gave it to the disciples, explaining to them, "This is my love, poured out for you. Take and drink. Drink deeply of my love. And every time you drink of it, remember me."
Amen.
And so this morning, with faith and hope as your people, we proclaim together that Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. Let us pray. God, who gives us so much, thank you for giving us this sacred meal. Today, may it be for us new and a refreshing, an experience of inspiration, comfort, and hope. Bless these elements. May they be for us your real presence as we love and serve you and those to whom we are called in your name.
Amen. At MCCs all around the world today, we welcome everyone to this table, regardless of where you are on your life's journey. These are God's gifts for us, the people of God. And whether you are participating from home or gathered here, please consume now the bread and the juice. And as we do so, may we experience God's love and blessing.
Let us pray. God, thank you for being a God who is with us along our journey. Thank you for your life-saving message and for giving us a community in which we are grounded in love. May we go from this place carrying the light of your love to a hurting world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Our closing hymn this morning originally was a temperance hymn. It was a hymn before there was AA or anything like that. Sometimes at revivals they would sing this song, "I Need You Every Hour." And think of it in that spirit, in the spirit of recovery, as we sing this wonderful old hymn of the church, "I Need You Every Hour."
Please rise.
Invite you to stay for the congregational meeting. Will you thank Justin Ryan one more time? And may God grant you serenity this week and the days and weeks to come. And may God continue to bless us as community. Amen. Go in peace.